The United States has taken the profits from the Iranian oil. Shah Farari Shodeh. The people have taken the profits from the Iranian oil. Shah Farari Shodeh. The people cry.
Ever since the Revolution of 1979, US presidents have viewed the Islamic Republic of Iran, under the rule of the Ayatollahs, as a threat and as an enemy, and the feeling's pretty mutual.
Iran's leaders have shown only a clenched fist.
آمریکا و انگلیس رو نگاه بکنید. هر جا دیکتاتوری و ترور و آدمکشی است، دست اونها در کاره.
For decades, Iran has fueled the fires of sectarian conflict and terror.
Death to America, Khamenei told the audience, because America is the original source of this pressure.
But what if it was blowback from US policies that helped the Ayatollahs take over in the first place? Americans often ask, why can't Iran have a secular democratic government? Well, they kinda did, and it was the US that helped get rid of that government and pave the way for the Ayatollahs and the Islamic Revolution. You have to go back to 1953 and the coup against Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, who was democratically elected. A former Time magazine Man of the Year, the populist Mossadegh had a great deal of support from ordinary Iranians. He reduced the powers of the autocratic king, the Shah, and nationalized the Iranian oil industry. That upset the British, who had been in control of Iran's oil, and they decided to take action.
We should not allow the biggest foreign asset in Britain to go without doing something about it.
The sooner, then, that he left power, the better for Persia. Not for us, for Persia.
Right. So the British persuaded the Americans, in the form of the Eisenhower administration, to join them in getting rid of Mossadegh.
The British understood the extent of paranoia in this country concerning communism. This was the day of Joe McCarthy, and that the British consciously played on that fear in order to help persuade us to involve ourselves in the coup.
Mossadegh was not a communist, but he did have the support of the country's Communist Party. So the CIA, just 6 years old, swung into action. CIA agent Kermit Roosevelt, grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt, arrived in Tehran in July of 1953 to implement Operation Ajax. Thanks to declassified CIA documents, we now know the details of that plan included persuading the Shah to sign 2 decrees sacking Mossadegh and replacing him with a pro-American general, paying mobs of protesters to take to the streets and start anti-government riots, and funding a propaganda campaign to portray Mossadegh as a pro-Soviet communist.
That mob that came into North Tehran and was decisive in the overthrow was a mercenary mob, had no ideology, and that mob was paid for by American dollars.
By August, Mossadegh had been forced from office and the Shah was back in full control. "I owe my throne to God, my people, my army, and to you," the jubilant Shah told Roosevelt and the CIA, as he kicked off a 26-year period of brutal dictatorship, which would end up sparking the Islamic Revolution in 1979. By the way, none of this is disputed anymore. The Clinton administration fessed up in 2000.
The Eisenhower administration believed its actions were justified for strategic reasons, but the coup was clearly a setback for Iran's political development.